Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Rose. I'm an author, mentor, life coach, motivational speaker, evangelist, musician, and activist. In the Christopher Rose Motivations, we're going to be sharing a message for this video and audio today. I'll be sharing the Christopher Rose Motivations to inspire humanity to learn about Jesus Christ, Jehovah, and Buddha, to help humanity to learn about faith, spirituality, faith, and religion, to help humanity to do the work of helping other people, giving back and making a difference, and really helping people what they're going through, and obviously motivating and inspiring people to do this type of work. So this is going to be a very important message to share today, and I want the listeners and viewers to really understand the importance of this message and this audio and video, and try to understand the importance of what's being shared. So the message that I have for today's audio and video is called Find, Seek, Search for Spiritual Enlightenment. Now, this is something that's very, very important to find in life, right? Spiritual enlightenment. And as a human being, it's very important that we find, seek, search for spiritual enlightenment. So the first thing we have to realize and understand is, what is spiritual enlightenment? What is it all about? Now, the important thing to learn about spiritual enlightenment is that spiritual enlightenment is when you've transcended the self from the no self. So you go on a spiritual change of your psyche and your psychological mind. When you transcend the self from the no self, you go through a spiritual awakening and a spiritual transformation. So the self is where all the suffering, pain, adversities come from. The no self is where spiritual freedom, spiritual liberation, spiritual awakening, spiritual transformation comes from. So it's so important if we want to live our lives where we're helping other people, we're giving back, we're making a difference, making a contribution, and we're finding and searching and seeking spiritual enlightenment, that we stay focused on what's important to us. Now, as human beings, we all have things that are important to us. So it could be our family, it could be our partner, it could be our children, it could be our career, it could be our business, it could be our volunteering, it could be our opportunities. We all have something that's important to us. But it's very, very important to learn and understand that find, seek, search, spiritual enlightenment becomes the most important thing. Now, the spiritual enlightenment is what is the most important thing to discover. Now, I have been sharing this on videos and audios, podcasts for a number of years. So I'm going to explain this very simply in this audio and video about how to seek, find, and search for spiritual enlightenment. This is the simple way of doing that, and it's very simple to find spiritual enlightenment. So before we can find spiritual enlightenment, we need to go for a spiritual change. So what is a spiritual change? The spiritual change is of your psyche and your psychological mind. When your psyche and your psychological mind goes for a spiritual change, then you actually slowly, it takes a long time to really understand this, you slowly start to change as a human being. Characteristics, your personality, your behavior, your morals, your values, your beliefs, the things that are important to you, the things that you're working towards, your goals, your aspirations, your motivations, your desires, your dreams, your personality, your behavior. So as you go on the process of spiritual change, which is a change of the psyche and the psychological mind, then you slowly become a different human being and a whole human being. And this is what becomes very difficult for people to realize, because most human beings say, why would you need to go for a spiritual change? Why is that so important? Because without the spiritual change, you can't find spiritual enlightenment. So I've explained this in like videos, books, and audios and podcasts before. So the spiritual change becomes the most important thing. Without that spiritual change, can't change your psyche and your psychological mind. So the question is, what is the psyche and the psychological mind? Your thinking and your thoughts and your whole being as a human being. You're actually, your human being as you're living, like you're the actual being of the person, right? Now, this is what gets confusing for so many people. They say, how can I change myself as a human being? What am I meant to do? How am I meant to change? What is the technique? What is the strategy? Now, there's no technique and strategy of how to go for a spiritual change. Normally, with spiritual change, it comes naturally. So it's a natural spiritual change of the psyche and the psychological mind. When the psyche and the psychological mind changes, which is the most important thing that a human being can ever go through in life, that's when you discover the no self, selflessness, and know thyself. So, what is the no self? A life of no more me, I, my, me. A life of no more self. That's what the no self means. What is selflessness? Selflessness is doing actions towards helping other people, giving back, making a difference. What is know thyself? Know thyself means you know yourself as a human being. Your life experiences, your failures, your successes, your mistakes, the challenges of your life, what you actually have been through as a human being. So this is what Jehovah, Jesus Christ, Buddha is asking us to do. They're asking us to go through a spiritual change within the psyche and the psychological mind. Only when you change the psyche and the psychological mind, then can you find, seek, search for spiritual enlightenment. And spiritual enlightenment is something that it's not hidden. It's very simple to find. So now I'm going to explain how simple it is to actually find spiritual enlightenment. So with spiritual enlightenment, there's 6 spiritual practices you can do to find spiritual enlightenment. And then 7 levels of helping other people. So let's explain it. So what are the 6 spiritual practices you can do to find spiritual enlightenment? And before we go into this in the audio and the video, I just want the person and the viewers to remember that this is a process. Spiritual practices are a process. If you develop the process of the spiritual practices, it takes a number of years to really understand how important the spiritual practices are. If you develop the qualities of the spiritual practices, then slowly you'll spiritually change. Once you slowly spiritually change, then you can slowly find spiritual enlightenment. So it's a gradual, slow process of finding it and seeking it and searching for spiritual enlightenment. So the question is, what are the 6 spiritual practices? Why are they so important to do? Because the 6 spiritual practices is how you become faithful, spiritual, truthful, and able to do something that's very important to you. So you have to develop this 6 spiritual practices. So what are the 6 spiritual practices? Number 1, prayer. Number 2, meditation. Number 3, mindfulness. Number 4, walking. Number 5, journaling. Number 6, silence. Now, I've explained this in audios videos, podcasts for a number of years how important these 6 spiritual practices are. It's the most important thing to discover in life. Without the 6 spiritual practices that you have to do daily as a process, like I'm explaining it in this audio video today, without the 6 spiritual practices that you have to do daily as a process of to find who you are, right, of spiritual alignment, you won't go through the process of spiritual change. And now, why is it so important to do 6 spiritual practices? Because the 6 spiritual practices are spiritual practices. They change you psychologically, spiritually, faithfully, and truthfully. Sometimes for a lot of human beings, when they go through suffering, pain, and adversity, they struggle because they've not overcome the self, discovered the no self. So it's so important that if some human beings really want to go on this journey of spiritual enlightenment and actually finding what spiritual enlightenment is, finding, seeking, search for spiritual enlightenment. If some human beings really want to go on this journey and discover it for themselves, you have to remember, always remember, the 6 spiritual practices are the way to spiritual change. You can't get spiritual enlightenment without spiritual change. So the spiritual change becomes the most important thing in spiritual enlightenment. Without the spiritual change, your psyche and your psychological mind wouldn't change. So your psyche and your psychological mind has to change. If your psyche and your psychological mind doesn't change, then you haven't gone for a spiritual change. And if you haven't gone for a spiritual change, then you can't do the next process of spiritual enlightenment. So I'm going to say this again in the audio and video very carefully for today. The 6 spiritual practices, prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, journaling, silence, is the way to actually spiritually change. Now, I've explained this before, and it's very important to learn this. Now, before we move on into the next part of spiritual enlightenment. Now, because the world is so busy with, I don't want to say this in a rude way to the viewers or the people who watch my content, because that's not how I view things. It's just getting the truth across. Because the world is so busy with it's just a chaotic world. That's the way I would call it. Very chaotic. So many. I'm trying not to say this in a negative way. Just so much different challenges and like situations and circumstances going on in the world. Right. There's just so many. Right. This is going on. That is going on. People behaving in certain ways. They're living their life in this sort of way, this mentality, this behavior, this society, this world, there's so much going on within the world today, like literally so much going on within the world today. It's just very chaotic, very confusing, and very destructive when you've learned what I'm saying. Right? So the truth of what I'm trying to say is you've got to develop the 6 spiritual practices. You've got to develop it. If you don't develop the 6 spiritual practices and go on the process of spiritually changing, it takes time. This isn't something that you just do one day and then slowly you're going to spiritually change. This isn't something you just do for a number of weeks and then you're slowly going to spiritually change. This isn't something that you do for a number of months or a number of years and you're slowly going to spiritually change. For each human being, it takes a different level of doing the 6 spiritual practices. So each human being must find what works for them. The reason why I say there's 6 spiritual practices is because you can choose out of the 6 spiritual practices which works for you. It could be prayer, it could be meditation, it could be mindfulness, it could be walking, it could be journaling, or it could be silence. There's no right or wrong way of doing the 6 spiritual practices. It's up to the the individual to find what works for them. But if you want to go on this journey of what spiritual enlightenment is and really find it in daily life, then I'll just encourage to do the 6 spiritual practices. Now, this is when the conversation gets interested in finding, seeking, searching spiritual enlightenment. This is when it gets very, very interesting, and I'm happy I'm making this audio and video today. Now, once you've gone through the process of spiritual change within the psyche and the psychological mind, which is there's nothing more important in life than going through a spiritual change within the psyche and the psychological mind. There's nothing more important than that. Only then, and I'm just going to repeat it again before we go into it, only then you do the 7 levels of helping other people. Now, before we go to this topic of the 7 levels of helping other people, I want to get the message clear. Now, like I said in the audio and the video earlier, I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was basically saying the world is very chaotic. People's behavior, the mentality, it's just very chaotic. I wasn't trying to be rude by saying that in the video and the audio. But this is what makes it more simpler when it comes to spiritual enlightenment. Now, it's just as simple as this. This is what makes it simple. Now, I don't like I said, I don't want to say this in a rude way or upset any of the listeners or the viewers that watch my content. It's just a very simple thing. Before we get to the levels of the 7 levels of helping other people, before we get into it, right, we have to always realize in all parts of life and mentality, right, and in the world of civilization, there's always going to be 2 different types of people. There's always going to be these 2 types of different people within the world, society, and humanity and civilization. Just 2 different types of people. There will be people that help other people, give back, make a difference and a contribution. Those are one types of people. There are going to be a second type of people that don't help other people, that don't give back, that don't make a difference. Now, this is when it gets very, very interesting in finding, seeking, searching spiritual enlightenment. Now, I'm just going to put a figure to it to not be rude in the audio and the video, but to get the message as clear as possible, just to get as clear as possible. Now, at least, I'm just going to put a figure in it, and I hope it just inspires those people that want to listen. At least 95% of human beings don't help other people, give back, make a difference, make a contribution. That's quite a lot of people that are not helping other people, giving back, making a difference. 95%. There's only that 5% that help other people, give back, make a difference, make a contribution. So when I say 95%, it's a very high number. That means the majority of the people are not helping other people. They're not giving back. They don't make a difference. They don't make a contribution. They're not serving. They're not impacting lives. They're not supporting anybody. They don't help. They don't support. They don't serve. They don't give back. They don't help other people. And they're not making a difference. 95%. So the 5% of people are helping other people, giving back and making a difference, which is a very, very small number. The question is, why did this person put in the video and audio 95%? Because it goes back to what I was saying previously within the audio and the video. The world is chaotic. The world is confusing. The world is very destructive. The world, the society, and the way people's behavior, the mentality, the characteristics, their morals, their values, their principles are not focused on helping other people, giving back, making a difference, making a contribution. So it goes back to what I've been saying. Without the spiritual change first, and I've always in my audios, in my videos, my books, and my messages, I've always specifically said in everything I've shared online and in my books, and my videos, and my audios, and podcasts, the spiritual change is the most important thing. Without the spiritual change, you can't do the work of the 7 levels of helping other people. Now, this is where people get confused because they normally say, and like I said, I have put a definition of how many people are helping other people and how many people are not. 95% of human beings do not give back. 95%. It's only that 5% that do. I know that's a very high number. I know that's a lot of human beings that are not helping other people. And I've always said normally I wouldn't put a figure into it because that becomes judgmental and that becomes a bit rude as well. I get that. I'm just trying to show you the importance of it. 95%. There's only that 5% that do. The 5% that do are always helping others, right? Now, before we go into the 7 levels of helping other people, I just want to get this clear. Now, I'm not saying you can't help other people without going through a spiritual change, because that would be wrong for me to say that, and that wouldn't be truthful for me to say that. So, you can help other people without going through a spiritual change. But the reality of that is, and I'm going to explain what the reality of that is right now. If you don't go through a spiritual change within your psyche and your psychological mind, you never become compassionate, never become empathetic, never become kind, you never become generous, you never become helpful, you never become giving, you never become thankful, grateful, if you haven't gone through the spiritual change. Because, look, I've explained this, and now I'm going to explain it very simply. Now, the suffering, pain, and adversity that people are going through is part of civilization. Let's just repeat that again. The suffering, pain, and adversities that people are going through is part of civilization. It's part of reality, right? So there's always going to be 95% of people that are not helping other people, which is a high number. It's a very high number. There's only going to be those small amounts of people within society and within the world that are. So the question we have to ask ourselves is this: do we want to help other people, give back, make a difference, make a contribution, and serve people what they're going through, which is the 95% of those people that need to be served? Or do we want to be one of those people that don't help other people? I never tell the listeners or the viewers that watch my content which one you should do in life, because that would be wrong for me to do. I'm not going to. The only thing I encourage through my videos, my audios, my books, my messages is spiritual change leads to spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment leads to spiritual truth. Spiritual truth leads to spiritual nature. Spiritual nature leads to spiritual energy. Spiritual energy leads to spiritual eternity. So it's a whole process, which is, it's so, when I share this in audios and videos and books, it's so complicated because people, they can't see how important helping other people is, because they're either, there's many reasons why, but the main reason is suffering, pain, and adversity. Because they've gone through their own suffering, pain, and adversity, they can't see the importance of helping other people, giving back, making a difference, making a contribution. Now I can talk about it. Now it's taken a little bit more just to share that in the video, but now I can talk about it. So specifically, there used to be, I'm just going to explain this in the audio and the video just before we finish the audio and video today. Now, There used to be 3 levels of helping other people. Then over time it transcended into 4. Then over time it transcended into 5. And over time it transcended into 7. So the reason why I can teach this and share this so simply is because each level of the 7 levels of helping other people are all contributing. So the 5%, like I said before in the audio and the video, the ones that are helping, those are the people that you see helping. They're not, I'm not going to say if they're spiritual or not, because I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't have the authority to say if they're spiritual or not. I don't know if they are spiritual or not, because you can't tell who's spiritual and who's not. But there's 5% of people that are helping other people are the ones that are giving back, making a difference, making a contribution. So now, when it comes to the 7 levels of helping other people, I'm going to explain it again in this audio and video today, which I haven't explained until this point. Each level is a process. Each level is a process. Each level is each level. And this depends on the human being and the individual. Depending on the human being and the individual depends on which level they reach. I repeat again. Depending on the human being and the individual depends on which level they reach of helping other people. So there's actually 7 levels of helping other people. And now it's time to explain it, right? And like I said, the 7 levels of helping other people, these are all evolved over time. Through learning and understanding, they evolve. So it's not like it's just going to be, it's always going to be 3 levels or 4 levels or 5 levels or 6 levels or 7 levels. It will evolve in time. That's how it is. It will evolve, right? So 7 levels now. So 7 levels. Level 1, volunteering, the good level in helping other people. Level 2, jobs, careers, employment, great level in helping other people. Level 3, business and entrepreneurship, highest level in helping other people. Level 4, faith and spiritual levels in helping other people. Level 5, spiritually helping other people who help other people, the teaching levels. Level 6, spiritually helping other people to spiritually change, the spiritual change levels. Level 7, spiritually helping other people in spiritual truth, the spiritual enlightenment levels of helping other people. Now, there are these 7 levels of helping other people. Now, just before we finish the audio and video today, I'm going to explain this very briefly. Now, if you don't go through a process of spiritual change within the psyche and the psychological, this is the change of what Jehovah, Jesus Christ, and Buddha is asking us to do. It actually is the change of what they're asking us to do. Then, when it comes to the 7 levels of helping other people, which is, I've just explained it in the audio and the video, they can't be reached. Now, just to share this in the video as well, and the audio, I said that the 7th level of helping other people, I'm going to just repeat the 7th level because it's so important, because it relates to this audio and video. The 7th level of helping other people is spiritually helping other people in spiritual truth. If you can't spiritually help other people with spiritual truth, you don't get to the spiritual enlightenment level. That's how it works. So it's a process. It really is a process. Level 1, volunteering. Level 2, jobs, careers, employment. Level 3, business and entrepreneurship. Level 4, faith and spiritual. Level 5, spiritually helping other people, helping other people. Level 6, spiritually helping other people to spiritual change. Level 7, spiritually helping other people in spiritual truth. The 7 levels of helping other people. Now the question is, why is this the most important thing to learn in life? Why? It goes back to what I said earlier within the audio and the video. 95% of human beings do not help other people. So this is when it gets confusing now. So the question is, what do you do with the 95% of people who don't help other people? What do you do? The question is simple. You've got to spiritually change first. When you spiritually change first, like I said earlier within the audio and the video already, you learn the no self, selflessness, know thyself. Once you've learned the no self, selflessness, and know thyself, that is when it takes a long time to get there. I'm not saying this spiritual enlightenment, but it's an easy thing to obtain. Once you get there, only when you get there, through spiritual change, that's when you have the opportunity to do the 7 levels of helping other people. And it goes back to what I said in the audio and the video already. I had to say it first before I got into the topic. Depending on the individual, depending on the human being, depends on which one they reach. That's what I said earlier in the audio and the video. So depending on the individual, depends on which one they reach. Some people say, but be successful, be rich, be prosperous, be generous, be helpful, be this, be that. The how can I word it? Like the talking of just do this, do that, be this, be that, live like this. It's all talk. It's not. You're not reaching the levels. You're not helping or doing it in a certain way. You're not attaining it. You're not reaching. You're not doing it. So it goes back to a simple thing. It depends on the individual which one they reach, which ones they attain. It goes back to the whole message of this audio video today, which is find, seek, search spiritual enlightenment. If you find, seek, search spiritual enlightenment, if you really get to that point within your life, and every human being must get to that point in their life, I don't see why you wouldn't do the 6 spiritual practices and why you wouldn't do the 7 levels of helping other people. And just before we finish, when I say the 7th level of helping other people is spiritually helping other people in spiritual truth, the truth is what shows. The light is what shows. The impact is what shows. Now people say, but it sounds weird, doesn't it? You're just saying 6 spiritual practices and 7 levels of helping other people. That sounds odd. It really isn't odd. It's a very simple. It's a simple process. It's a very simple process. It's not when I share it in audios, videos, and books. I'm not trying to complicate things. I keep it very, very simple. If you want to find, seek, search spiritual enlightenment, do 6 spiritual practices and 7 levels of helping other people. And like it goes back to what I said, the 95%. And the 5% that do. So and I'm going to finish it there now because I could talk about this subject for hours. I really can, but at some point, I have to end the video and end the audio. But the message is simple, and I've explained it again in this audio in this video today. Spiritual enlightenment comes to those people that have gone through a spiritual change. When you've gone through a spiritual change within the psyche and the psychological mind, which is the change of what Jehovah, Jesus Christ, and Buddha is asking us to do, it actually is that change. It doesn't it doesn't look like it's a simple thing to do just to change. It doesn't look simple. It looks, how are you going to change? What are you going to do to change? How are you going to... It sounds very complicated, but it can be very simple. 6 spiritual practices and 7 levels of helping other people to find, seek, search spiritual enlightenment. And when you have spiritual enlightenment, your whole life changes. It goes back to what I said earlier in the audio in the video today. The no self, selflessness, know thyself. The no self is no more self. There's no more I, me, my, or this. It's the ending of that. The selflessness, like I said earlier in the audio in the video, helping other people in what they are going. The know thyself. You know yourself as a human being. Your life, your successes, your failures, your mistakes, the journey of your life. This comes to spiritual people. This comes to spiritual human beings. This is what is spiritual enlightenment, when you've gone on the journey of spiritual change. And when you've gone on the journey of spiritual change, this is what it does. It leads to spiritual enlightenment. When it leads to spiritual enlightenment, that leads to spiritual truth. When it leads to spiritual truth, that leads to spiritual nature. When it leads to spiritual nature, it leads to spiritual energy. When it leads to spiritual energy, it leads to spiritual eternity. So your life becomes a life of contribution. The only way to really get spiritual enlightenment is when your life becomes a life of contributions. And it goes back to what I said, and I'm going to just finish it just one more time in the audio and the message today. Only 5% of the people help other people. The rest, the 95%, it's like a suffering, pain, and adversity thing to learn that. It's very, very difficult to learn that. But it goes back to what I've always said in my audios, my videos, my books, and podcasts. You've got to help those people who are in the 95%. And that's the reality. And when I keep on saying in the audio and the video today that Jehovah, Jesus Christ, and Buddha is asking us to change, they're asking us to change. It's not like it's not like a change where it's like, oh, I need to get a job, or I need to get a partner or a relationship, or I need a change to have children, or I need a change to like get married or go on a holiday or buy a car. That's not the change that Jehovah and Jesus Christ and Buddha is calling us to do. The change that Jehovah and Jesus Christ and Buddha is calling us to do is to find, seek, search spiritual enlightenment. The only people that can teach it, just as I've been teaching it over the years, and this isn't like the first audio or video I've shared about this. It's been many, right? Are the ones that have spiritually changed. Until you spiritually change, and I'm not going to tell a person the right or wrong way of how to. I just can't do this. It's individually. It's an individual thing. Until you spiritually change the psyche and the psychological mind, it goes back to what I said, and then we'll finish it after this. The compassion, the passion, the love, the kindness, the generosity, the empathy, um, the care, the meaning, the value, the appreciation, the thankfulness, the gratefulness. It can come when you spiritually change. That's where you have to spiritually change, and it's difficult. It's not easy. No, there's no spiritual change that becomes easy in life. All spiritual changes take a little bit more to learn before you can obtain it. And just before we finish, I will have to end off to this last point, and this will be the last point for this audio video today. Spiritual change is spiritual enlightenment. So you have to spiritually change to find spiritual enlightenment. And spiritual enlightenment is involved in a spiritual change. So you have some I don't know, like I've always said this in my audios, my videos, my books for many years. I can't tell a person what it's gonna be for them to spiritually change because each human being is unique in their own. The only difference is that are you going to spiritual change? Will you obtain the light? Will you do 6 spiritual practices, 7 levels of helping other people? Is that possible? Are you able to do it? To the 95% of people, they can't answer that question. Sorry for that. They can't to 95%. They can't answer it. It won't happen for them. It won't happen. It's just that simple. It won't happen for them. They can't answer it. To those 5% of people that can answer that question, can you do the 6 spiritual practices? Can you do the 7 levels of helping other people? To those 5% of people that can. Spiritual enlightenment. I'm not going to say it comes for every human being. It may not, actually. Truthfully, it may not. But to those 5%, it can actually be obtained. And just before we finish, before I end the audio video today, where's the 7th level of helping other people? Spiritually helping other people in spiritual truth. So the truth is what shows. The light is what shows. The impact is what shows. The difference is what shows. The significance is what shows. When you spiritually changed yourself. The know self and selflessness and know that. The impact, the difference, the significance, the meaning, the value will show. It takes time, but it's obtainable. It's obtainable. Okay, that's the end of this audio video today. If you want to check out more of my content and my videos and my books and my audios, for the books, just go on Amazon, Christopher Lee and Rose. I think I've written about, I think it's 44 books at the moment, or 45, I can't actually remember, but the books are available. If you want to check out more of the podcasts of the Christopher Lee and Rose Motivation, they're on Apple Podcasts, and I think Apple Music, and also Spotify and YouTube. And then, obviously, if you want to check out the videos of these new videos, then just on YouTube, just type in Christopher Lee and Rose Motivation, and you'll find me. Just remember, spiritual change is spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment is the 6 spiritual practices, 7 levels of helping other people. So 5%, let's see you can do it. To the 95%, they can't do it. 5%, let's see you can do it. To the 95%, they can't do it. Okay, thank you now. Finish the audio and video there. Take care now. Have a good evening. Take care.